The night cycle on Outpost K was quiet, the kind of quiet that made small sounds feel loud. The station floated alone near the edge of mapped space, far from trade routes and far from war. Most days, nothing happened there. That was why Officer Elias Marr had been assigned to it. He was steady, patient, and good at being alone. Elias sat at the small table in his quarters, reading an old paper book. He preferred paper. Machines failed, power flickered, but paper stayed honest. Outside his narrow window, the stars looked cold and distant. He had learned their patterns, learned which ones were real and which were station lights reflected back at him. The door chime did not sound. Instead, the door slid open silently. Elias looked up at once, his body reacting before his thoughts did. His hand moved toward the small defense tool clipped at his side. No one should have been able to open his door without his permission. The station systems were old but secure, and there were no other permanent residents. A figure stood in the doorway. She was tall, taller than most humans, with skin that held a faint silver-blue tone under the room's lights. Her eyes were large and dark, reflecting more light than human eyes should. She wore a long robe made of soft, layered fabric that shimmered slightly as she moved. The robe marked her as alien, but also as someone important, not a worker, not a soldier. She stepped inside and let the door close behind her. Elias stood slowly. He did not point the weapon. Something about her posture stopped him. She did not look afraid, but she did not look threatening either. Her shoulders were straight, her chin lifted, as if she had made a decision and would not turn back from it. "You should not be here," Elias said. His voice was calm, trained. "This is a restricted human quarters." She inclined her head slightly. "I know." Her voice was clear, shaped carefully around human sounds. It carried a gentle echo, as if her throat was built differently. She spoke calm and well, but with effort. Elias noticed then that she was trembling just a little. Not with fear, but with strain, like someone holding themselves together by will alone. "How did you open my door?" he asked. "I asked your station," she said. "It listens to humans, it does not listen to us, but it listens when we are desperate." That made no sense, and Elias was about to say so when she reached up and touched the clasp at her neck. He stiffened. "Stop!" She paused, her fingers still. She looked at him directly. Her eyes were serious, not inviting, not playful. "This is important," she said. "Please do not interrupt." Slowly, with care, she unclasped the robe and let it fall from her shoulders. There was no shock in the act, no sudden movement meant to surprise. Beneath the robe, she wore simple inner garments, plain and close-fitting, nothing decorative. Her body was clearly alien, shaped differently at the joints, the lines of her muscles unfamiliar. There was nothing about it meant to provoke desire. Instead, the act felt ceremonial, heavy with meaning. Elias lowered his hand from his weapon. She stepped forward, crossed the room, and sat on the edge of his bed. After a brief pause, as if following rules only she could see, she drew her legs up and lay down on the cover, hands folded over her chest. Elias stood frozen. "Why are you on my bed?" he asked finally. She closed her eyes. "Because this is the place of greatest safety." "That is not how humans see it," he said. "I know," she replied, "but it is how my people do." Silence stretched between them. The station hummed softly around them, the sound of life support and distant machinery. Elias forced himself to breathe slowly. "My name is Elias Marr," he said. "I am a human officer of the Terran Union. You are in my private space. I need to understand what is happening." Her eyes opened again. "My name is Salith of the Veiled Archive," she said. "I am hunted, and you are the only one here who can keep me alive." Elias rubbed his face with one hand. "You broke into a military outpost and climbed into my bed. That is not a normal request for protection." "In my culture," Salith said, "to remove one's outer robe is to place one's life in another's care. To rest upon the sleeping place of another is to declare trust beyond law or contract. I have done both." "I have no further symbols to offer." Elias studied her. He had trained with dozens of alien species. He knew cultural differences could be extreme. Still, this was far beyond anything in his manuals. "Who is hunting you?" he asked. She hesitated, and for the first time fear crossed her face. "An authority that claims to preserve order. They are erasing my people." "Erasing how?" Elias asked. "Quietly," she said. "Archives destroyed, genetic lines ended, children reassigned, history rewritten. Soon no one will remember we existed." Elias felt a tightness in his chest. "Why you?" "I am an archivist," Salith said. I carry living records, not data, not files, memory encoded in my cells, songs, laws, mistakes, kindnesses I am not meant to fight. I am meant to remember. And you think I can protect that, Elia said. Yes, that is a lot to put on one person. You are human, she said simply. Elias almost laughed. That is not an answer. It is, she said. Your species is strange. You make laws, then argue with them. You build weapons, then teach yourselves when not to use them. You protect those who cannot repay you. That makes you unpredictable. That makes you dangerous to those who depend on control. Elias sat down in the chair opposite the bed. He kept his distance, giving her space. If what you say is true, others will come. This outpost is not defensible against a fleet. I do not need you to fight a fleet, Salith said. I need time. For what? For your kind to notice, she replied. Elias frowned. Notice what? That something precious is being lost, she said, and that you are the kind who does not look away when you see that. A warning tone sounded softly from the wall panel. Elias stood and checked it. Long-range sensors showed faint distortions, nothing clear but enough to make his skin prickle. You were followed, he said. Yes, Salith replied. Not closely, but they know the direction I fled. Elias nodded slowly. His mind shifted into planning mode. You will need to leave my quarters. Her eyes widened. For a moment she looked truly afraid. I cannot, not yet. You cannot stay here, he said gently. But you can stay on the station. There are shielded compartments, old maintenance areas, places not on modern maps. You will still help me, she asked. I will do my duty, Elias said, and then some if needed. That seemed to calm her. She sat up, feet touching the floor. Then I will follow your lead, Guardian, he blinked. Guardian. That is the role you accepted when you did not raise your weapon, she said, even if you did not know it. Elias exhaled slowly. We will talk about titles later. He offered her the robe. She accepted it with both hands as if it were something fragile. As she stood, he noticed how tired she looked, not physically weak but worn down like someone who had been running for a long time without rest. How long have you been alone? He asked. Since my escort died, she said quietly. Elias said nothing. He activated a privacy field and began rerouting station logs, hiding her entry. Each action felt small, but together they formed a choice. A line crossed. As they left the quarters and moved through the dim corridors of the outpost, Elias felt the weight of the night settle on him. Whatever had just begun would not end quietly. He did not know why fate had chosen his door, his bed, his lonely station. But he knew one thing clearly. Humanity had just been invited into a story much larger than itself, and walking away was no longer an option. The maintenance section of Outpost K was not meant for comfort. The lights were dimmer there, the air cooler, carrying the faint smell of metal and old filters. Elias led the way through narrow corridors that most station maps no longer showed. These passages had been built during the first expansion years, then forgotten as technology improved. Forgotten places were often the safest. Salith followed closely, her steps quiet despite the unfamiliar gravity adjustments. She held her robe tightly around herself, not out of shame, but habit. Elias noticed she kept her head lowered, listening, as if the station itself might whisper warnings. They reached a small compartment hidden behind a sliding panel that looked like a solid wall unless touched in a specific pattern. Elias keyed it open and motioned her inside. This place has no direct sensors, he said. No official record either. Old system, human-built. That matters. Salith looked around. The room was bare but clean. A narrow cot, a sealed storage unit, a low table fixed to the floor. It was enough. She placed one hand flat against the wall and closed her eyes. It is quiet, she said. True quiet, thank you. Elias nodded. You'll stay here while I figure out our next move. Our, she repeated softly. Yes, he said. If I leave you alone without a plan, you'll be found. That's not acceptable. She studied him for a long moment. You speak as if this choice is already made. Elias paused. He had not thought of it that way, but she was right. Somewhere between the door opening and now, he had decided. I don't like bullies, he said simply, even large, powerful ones. A faint expression crossed her face, something like relief mixed with sadness. That trait, she said, has appeared many times in our studies of humans. It is not logical, but it is consistent. Elias activated a small projector and brought up station sensor data. Tell me everything, he said. No symbols, no ceremony, just facts. She sat on the cot and drew a slow breath. My people are called the Lyrari, she began. We do not rule territory, we keep memory. When species join the greater network, we record who they were before power reshaped them. Songs, customs, even mistakes. It is not flattering work. That is why it is dangerous. Dangerous to who? Elias asked. To those who wish to rewrite themselves, Salith replied. There is a coalition forming, strong, orderly, efficient. They believe history should serve stability. Anything that reminds people of past cruelty, failure, or diversity is inconvenient. Elias felt anger rise in his chest. So they erase you? Yes, she said, quietly, so quietly that even now most of the galaxy believes we still exist. And you carry the records in your body, Elias said. She nodded. Living memory cannot be seized like data, it must be destroyed. Elias leaned back against the wall. You're a walking truth bomb. That is a human term, she said. It fits, he replied. A soft alert chimed in Elias' ear implant. He stiffened. Long-range scan anomaly, he muttered. They're closer than I thought. Salith's hands tightened in her robe. Then I have misjudged the time I bought. Not necessarily, Elias said. Human stations like this one have a habit of looking unimportant. Let's keep it that way. Over the next hours, Elias worked quietly. He rerouted power flows, masked heat signatures, and flooded nearby space with harmless signal noise that made tracking difficult. None of it was advanced technology. It was patchwork, clever misuse, and small lies layered over each other. Salith watched him with open curiosity. You do not rely on automated defense, she observed. I don't trust systems that assume the enemy follows rules, Elias said. That explains much, she replied. When he finished, he handed her a small communicator. This links only to me. No station network. If anything feels wrong, you tell me immediately. She accepted it with both hands. You continue to offer protection without demand, she said. That is unsettling. Get used to it, Elias said. Humans are bad at transactional kindness. Later, while Elias monitored sensors from a hidden console, Salith spoke again. Elias, yes. You asked earlier why I came to a human station, she said. There is another reason. He waited. My people once recorded your early history, she said. Your wars, your recoveries, your failures, and something stood out. What? He asked. You kept rebuilding ideals that hurt you, she said. Freedom, dignity, choice. Even when those ideas caused conflict, you did not abandon them. You argued about them instead. Elias gave a dry smile. We're stubborn. Yes, she agreed. Stubborn in a way that frightens empires. The next day cycle passed without incident, but tension filled every moment. Elias barely slept, resting in short shifts while automated systems watched for patterns he might miss. Salith remained in the hidden room, silent, conserving energy. She did not complain. She did not ask for comfort. On the second cycle, the hunters arrived. They did not announce themselves. Space around the outpost bent slightly as ships dropped from folded transit. Their vessels were smooth, angular, marked with no symbols. That alone worried Elias. Anonymous power preferred obedience, not recognition. Station alerts flickered, then went dark. Someone was probing the systems gently, carefully, like fingers testing for weak points. They're good, Elias muttered. Salith stood beside him now, eyes focused on the sensor display. They will not fire, she said. Not yet. They prefer compliance. From a forgotten outpost with one human officer? Elias asked. Yes, she replied, because you are human. He looked at her sharply. Explain. You are not easily replaced, she said. If they kill you, questions follow. If you cooperate, nothing changes. Elias clenched his jaw. Then I won't cooperate. A signal came through the external channel. A calm, neutral voice filled the room. Terran Officer Elias Mar, it said. We request permission to dock for inspection. Elias activated the channel. On what authority? Galactic Stability Mandate, the voice replied. Your station falls within our temporary jurisdiction. That mandate isn't recognized by the Terran Union, Elias said. Recognition is not required, the voice answered. Elias felt Salith's gaze on him. He thought of Earth, of distant lawmakers, of how long it would take help to arrive if he asked. Too long. I am alone here, Elias said. You won't find what you're looking for. There was a pause. All beings carry what they are, the voice said. We will find it. Elias cut the channel. They know, he said. Yes, Salith replied, but they do not know you. Docking clamps engaged with a low tremor. Elias moved quickly, sealing sections of the station, opening others, creating a confusing layout that changed with each minute. Human-built systems allowed that kind of flexibility. Footsteps echoed in distant corridors. Elias guided Salith through alternate passages, always staying one step ahead. At one point, a patrol passed so close Elias could hear their breathing through the wall. Salith's hand brushed his arm. "If they capture me," she whispered, "you must deny me." Elias shook his head. "Not happening. You do not understand," she said urgently. "They will offer you protection, status, you will be tempted." Elias met her eyes. "I understand perfectly," he said, "and my answer is still no." Something changed in her expression then, trust deep and real. They reached the old cargo bay at the station's far end. Elias sealed it behind them and activated a small escape craft hidden beneath layers of unused equipment. "This wasn't on any map," Salith said. "No," Elias replied. "Because humans learned a long time ago that maps get people killed." As the craft powered up, the station shook. The hunters had realized too late. Elias looked back once at the outpost, at the place that had been his quiet world. He felt no regret. As the craft slipped into the dark between stars, Salith spoke softly. "You have made yourself an enemy of something very large." Elias adjusted the controls, eyes forward. Then it picked the wrong human. And somewhere far beyond them, systems that had never accounted for human refusal began to fail. The escape craft moved silently through the void, a small dot against endless stars. Elias kept his hands steady on the controls, though every nerve in his body was alert. Salith sat across from him, wrapped in her robe, staring at the instruments without really seeing them. Her species, physiology allowed her to survive longer without sleep, but her mind was restless, turning over every moment that had brought her here. "They will follow," she said quietly. "They always follow." Elias did not answer immediately. He adjusted the craft's trajectory slightly, avoiding the main sensor paths of nearby systems. "Not easily," he said finally. "Humans have ways of hiding even when they have nothing to hide." Salith looked at him sharply. "Your confidence is unusual." "Maybe," he said, "or maybe we just know when to keep our mouths shut." She nodded slowly, understanding more than he expected. "On your world, you do not rely solely on technology." "Never," Elias said. "Technology can fail, people adjust." Her eyes widened slightly. "That is why you are alive and why I am here." He said nothing, focusing instead on the blinking lights that marked the craft's limited shield and navigation systems. The hunters' fleet was somewhere behind them, though exactly where was impossible to know. They were not fast enough to catch them yet, but that could change. "You must trust me," he said at last. "Every decision from here is a risk, but every risk is calculated." "You have already chosen," she said softly, "even when you did not realize it." He glanced at her. "Chosen what?" "To protect me," she said. "Not because I asked. Not because you were told. Because you decided it was right." Elias felt a strange warmth, not pride exactly, but something like understanding. The universe often placed humans in impossible situations. Their value was measured not by strength or speed, but by judgment and courage. And somehow in her eyes he saw that reflected. The first challenge came without warning. Sensors detected an anomaly ahead, a gravity ripple that distorted light and could tear an unprepared craft apart. Elias adjusted the shields and maneuvered the craft carefully, guiding them around the edge of the distortion. Salith remained calm, offering advice when she could read the subtle shifts in spatial energy that humans could not sense naturally. "You are exceptional," she said quietly, "not only in courage but in perception." "I've been lucky," he said, "mostly careful." They passed the anomaly, but the chase was far from over. Another signal appeared on the long-range sensors, this time a more precise detection pattern. The hunters were closing the gap, using predictive algorithms designed for faster-than-light tracking. Elias gritted his teeth. Their craft could jump short distances, but the hunter's fleet could anticipate most standard maneuvers. "You cannot outrun them forever," Salith said. "They will force you into a choice." "I know," he said. "That is why we will not just run." She tilted her head. "You plan to fight?" "In a way," he said. "Not with weapons, not with brute force, with human unpredictability." Salith frowned. "Explain." Elias activated a communications console, sending signals that mimicked multiple false exits from their current location. Small bursts of energy created decoy trails, while subtle alterations to their trajectory made them appear elsewhere. The hunters would follow patterns they assumed were predictable. Humans rarely followed expected patterns. "They will not anticipate you?" she asked. "Exactly," he said. They know strategy, they do not know improvisation. Hours passed in tense silence. The craft moved through safe paths, never straight, never calm. Salith remained alert, occasionally advising on subtle energy shifts. Each successful evasion increased her admiration, not for technology, but for human judgment. It was something her species rarely encountered, cleverness combined with moral conviction. Eventually, the hunters realized the deception and attempted a direct confrontation. Their ships appeared on the periphery, forming a loose blockade. Elias studied them carefully. "They want to corner us," he said, "but their focus is too rigid. They will not adapt quickly." Salith's hands tightened on the edge of her seat. "You are risking everything." "I know," he said calmly, "but sometimes risk is the only tool we have." He activated a small transponder, sending a signal into unclaimed space. It was a call for aid, but not through official channels. Humans and allies who valued freedom would recognize it. The signal carried no coordinates for those who would exploit it, only for those willing to act without reward. It was a gamble, relying on human networks of trust, courage, and speed. Salith watched him silently. "You trust your own kind even more than technology," she observed. Elias shrugged. "Technology is only as good as the person using it. People can improvise, people can care, people can act when the rules fail." The hunters advanced. Their energy weapons flared in the distance, harmless so far but a constant reminder of danger. Elias maneuvered the craft with precise patience, guiding them toward a nearby asteroid field. The jagged terrain would slow larger ships, giving them the advantage. The hunters hesitated briefly, unsure of the human's strategy. That hesitation was all Elias needed. With careful calculation, he led the craft through narrow gaps between massive rocks, each move requiring skill and timing. The hunters' larger ships could not follow without risk of collision. Their formation broke, their advantage reduced. Elias smiled faintly. "Humans have a way of turning the impossible into survival." Salith's eyes shone with something like awe. "I underestimated you," she admitted, "and I underestimated humans." They emerged from the asteroid field with no damage, the hunters forced to retreat to safer positions. Elias adjusted the course toward an uncharted system, a place she could safely hide while she planned the next steps. She would be out of immediate danger, and he would have ensured that without asking for recognition or reward. "You have saved my life," Salith said quietly. Elias shook his head. "We saved it together, I only acted. You chose to trust me, that matters more." Her expression softened. "In my culture, trust is not given lightly. You have earned it." The small craft glided into the uncharted system. Planets with thick atmospheres and dense forests offered natural hiding places. Elias guided them to a world with deep canyons and rivers that would mask their energy signature. Salith's breathing eased for the first time since she had arrived at the station. As they descended, she asked, "Why do you help strangers, humans, even when it is dangerous?" Elias looked at her thinking, "Because it is right, because someone has to, and because sometimes one person can make a difference, even if no one notices." She considered this, eyes reflecting the alien sky as they neared the planet's surface. "Your people are remarkable," she said softly, "and I see now why." They landed in a secluded valley, surrounded by high cliffs and thick foliage. Elias powered down the craft and helped her out. She inhaled the fresh air, the first she had truly breathed since leaving her world. The alien woman who had once climbed boldly onto a human's bed now stood free, safe for the moment, because of the courage and judgment of a human being. Elias set up a small perimeter with sensors and camouflage. It was enough to prevent casual detection, though not a permanent solution, but it gave them time. Time to plan, time to recover, time for the galaxy to recognize that humans were more than tools or pawns. They were decisive actors, capable of shaping events with morality and ingenuity. As they settled near a stream, Salith spoke again. "What you have done will not be forgotten. Among my people, your actions will be recorded." Elias smiled faintly. "Then they will remember humans the way we sometimes forget ourselves, as capable of honor as anything else." The stars reflected in the river below, bright and countless. Salith sat beside him, calm for the first time. Not because she trusted entirely in the stars or the hiding place, but because she trusted the human who had chosen to act when rules, fear, and expectation suggested inaction. In the distance, sensors picked up faint signs of the hunters regrouping, but Elias was not worried. He had learned to expect the unexpected. Humans survived by thinking, by caring, and by refusing to give in to fear. That alone could tip the scales of galactic events. Salith studied him, understanding fully for the first time why humans were both underestimated and feared. They were unpredictable, yes, but more than that, they acted from conviction. They valued life and freedom in ways that others could not anticipate. That was their greatest strength. Together, they watched the night sky, stars glittering like distant fires. The galaxy was vast, full of danger, full of unknowns. But as long as humans acted with courage, even the smallest acts of defiance could echo across the stars. Salith leaned slightly closer, not in ceremony, not in demand, but in mutual acknowledgement. Elias understood. The bond forged in danger, in trust, and in choice was stronger than any law or armor. It was human and it was profound. It was enough to change outcomes, even those shaped by empires. For now, the valley was safe. For now, they could plan. For now, humanity had once again proven its value, not through conquest, not through power, but through judgment, courage, and the quiet insistence that life, in all its forms, was worth protecting. And somewhere far above them in the black expanse, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter, as if acknowledging that even in the darkest reaches of space, humans could make a difference. The galaxy had learned something new. Never underestimate those who act because it is right, not because it is easy. Elias and Salith sat side by side, watching the lights of distant stars, ready for whatever came next, knowing that together, even against impossible odds, they could endure. The galaxy was vast, but so was human determination, and that alone could shape destinies.